to our podcast, a gifted child's symposium. Our topics are quite niche, but stick around and listen to
some cutting-edge analysis of art, both strange and fun. Let's interrogate what plagues us all, like are we forced to sing along?
Like, do we have free will?
Is there a God?
We've read all the tomes, we've done all the research.
The answer is clear, the answer is here.
The answer is obviously found in
TV musical episodes.
I'm Eugene.
And I'm Felicia. And welcome to our latest hyperfixation.
Yeah.
Oh, musical episodes. Some might think this isn't something anyone needs to spend any amount of time talking about because they just exist, but no.
They just exist.
We are here to argue otherwise, which is to say we've been thinking about this a lot, and now you shall be thinking about it too.
And like everyone, I feel like when I've talked to people about this episode, they know what we mean. It's just no one has thought about them, which is our specialty. Like, everyone who's like liked a popular show that has lived through like more than 3 seasons, it has had a musical episode. Like, it is kind of like a trope. And they're often silly and they're often stupid, but I think even the most musical hating person will have seen like 4 musical episodes from their favorite TV shows.
Again, they just happen and you are just there, like having it happen.
You're just there. You have no choice.
And this is oddly thematic, actually, because
exactly,
as you'll see in about 30 minutes, we're going to be tackling some pretty big issues.
Exactly.
Because of course we are. Anyway, to kick off, let's do like a quick intro into what are musical episodes. Obviously they're pretty self-explanatory, but basically they're episodes of a TV show that aren't typically musical, as in the TV shows themselves aren't musical TV shows, that have musical numbers in them. So this excludes musical shows like Glee and High School Musical, the musical, the series.
Incredible.
As always, whenever I say that name, God. But musical episodes do include stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, Grey's Anatomy, etc. And musical episodes in sort of like their original form actually originated much earlier than either of us, I think, thought.
Yeah.
Because I think we both thought it was kind of like maybe a product of the 90s. At that's like early 2000s. No. The first like kind of like established this is a musical episode of a TV series is from 1956, which is a episode of I Love Lucy called Lucy Goes to Scotland, which had one musical number in it, but still I guess it does count. And then it just kept going, and then like I think like a pivotal moment was probably in 1982. The TV adaptation of Fame brought musicals to like the popular small screen, like that show about it's like a performing arts school.
Heard of this.
You don't know Fame?
No,
oh
I'm sorry.
Remember my name, Fame. I'm gonna live forever. No?
No.
It's fine. Anyway, and then in 1997, I think perhaps most famously to like our generation, an episode of Xena the Warrior Princess called This Bittersweet featured Xena and Gabrielle singing through their issues. And then most relevant to this episode, in 2001, an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer titled Once More with Feeling aired. And that is probably the most well-known example of a musical episode that sort of like fits into the genre as it is, as like that we're talking about today. A lot of these episodes have original songs, for better or for worse, that kind of like fit the narratives and the characters better by being specific. But they generally speaking, they aren't like amazing songs because either the showrunners were on a huge time crunch when they were, producing the episode, or, the showrunners themselves aren't musical theater composers and musical theater takes a long time to compose. But anyway, I digress.
I think a lot of people who like talking about like if the songs are good, which are they? I think it's kind of I think a lot of people see musical episodes as like just funny or silly or parodies, and arguably maybe the worst of television and the worst of musicals. Like all in one, because sometimes just the songs suck. But I think we want to argue that it's the best of television and the best of musicals are what musical episodes are, actually.
Agreed. And then obviously you have like I think like probably the most iconic moment from a musical episode like in wider pop culture is Grey's Anatomy use of How to Save a Life.
Oh my god.
Like that is such an iconic moment, and it is from the musical episode of Grey's Anatomy. Obviously sometimes these musical episodes have original music in them, but sometimes they're like jukebox. So like Riverdale, we're not going to touch on Riverdale, but Riverdale like does cover a lot of songs in like diegetic ways, that's like a whole other can of worms, and let's not.
I guess we're saying that musical episodes have like a wide definition. As long as there is a musical number in an episode of television, it's a musical episode. I think the kind of case studies we will be talking about have most of the episode is songs, and they develop through songs, or they have at least like major plot points through songs the way that a musical would. But like I've seen, when you look up like my musical episodes, some people like talk about How I Met Your Mother, which has a lot of musical whimsical elements, but there's one episode that has a big number, and that's what they call the musical episode, but it's literally one number, you know? So it's, I think like as long as there's a song, whether or not that's like built for the show or not, it's a musical episode.
Yeah. I think another important thing to address before we get into the meat of it is talking about like how generally people feel about musical theater, which is to say that a lot of people do not like musicals, and by extension those same people wouldn't like musical episodes because, and I think like the main reasons I've heard that people don't like musicals in general, and like even on the stage, is that they find them kind of like tacky, keyword unrealistic / weird / cheesy, etc. And the general feedback is like that they just don't really understand why would they just burst into song. That's so weird. And like fair play, like in real life that would be weird, but there is like a language to it in musical theater. Like that is a tradition that like goes all the way back to like opera, but like it isn't random, basically, is like what we're trying to establish here before we get into like how musical episodes work with the musical theater context. Like the general rule for the language of musical theater is that the characters speak until they sing, as in they're so overcome by emotion that they sing, and then when they become so overcome by emotion that they can't sing anymore, they break into dance. So with each iteration of like that language, so speak, sing, dance, speak, sing, dance, it's like a demonstration of the scene / the character becoming more emotionally intense.
And I think that's important to bring up because that is how it works in musicals. Like musicals exist within a world where everyone sings, and that's why people don't like it. But musical episodes, they just tend to just sing. Like they don't live in a world where they usually sing, and therefore singing is the result of their emotional intensity. They just happen to be singing, but because of this language of musicals, that singing becomes emotionally intense, or it becomes part of the emotional plot points of the episode. I think that's why musical episodes are interesting. I think that's why we want to talk about them. A lot of people don't like musicals. Not us. Could not be us. We fucking love musicals.
No.
But a lot of people don't like musicals because they're like, yeah, like as you said, like unrealistic. Like why would they sing or dance? Tell me you don't sing and dance. Like just tell me you have no joy in your life. But I think the general public likes musical episodes, whether or not they know they like them. I think like if you talk to random people, they're like, oh my god, the X and Y musical episode, like that was really good. The How I Met Your Mother musical episode, like fucking love that song. It's like, why? Why?
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they don't have that like speak, therefore sing, therefore dance. They just do it, and it's quite silly, and we kind of like the silliness.
I think the other thing to think about is that like for specifically TV show musical episodes, the music often is there to be a bit comedic and be surprising to the audience. Like it is a really self-aware thing, like playing on people's love and hatred for musical theater to create those specific reactions. Like it is meant to be funny, basically.
Yeah.
Like it is meant to be silly. And I think the thing that people enjoy about musical episodes that maybe they don't like musical theater in general is because they can take it as satire and parody.
Yeah, like the two of us are of the opinion that musical storytelling or storytelling within musical theater is like genius and beautiful and whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're not of that opinion and you just think it's silly, musical episodes do both. They are like, yeah, you're right, this is silly, and the characters know, and the showrunners know, and the audience knows. So I think it can like overcome the seriousness of musical theater that a lot of people like find off-putting, but also overcome the kind of like usual format of storytelling of television just for one brief episode, for one brief blip. So it kind of subverts both musicals and television, and that's what we're interested in, and kind of like what that means, especially when we're saying the characters, the audience, and the showrunners all know this isn't normal, but also end up doing it and committing to it. I think this is kind of like the result of what Richard S. Albright writes about in his essay breakaway pop hit or book number, Once More with Feeling and Genre, which is an essay he wrote for, like, based on Buffy's musical episode, which we will discuss in a second. But basically he says, and I quote, "We have certain expectations about the musical genre that we quote unquote buy into. We also accept as a matter of course that music operates in the affective realm and often conveys one's true inner emotions," end quote. I really like the use of affective realm. I think this is the thing where, like, television is kind of strange to be recording this in 2025 when, you know, we are kind of past the golden age of television. Now we had like Game of Thrones, and now we have Severance, and we have like these like, oh wow, television is like this serious, beautiful thing that tells stories. But like for most of television's history, it has been like for the masses, silly. So when you bring musicals, which are kind of seen as like a very self-serious thing, into television, then you have to kind of accept that. You have to accept that we are in the affective realm of musicals and music. That at the end of the day, musical numbers and music in general makes us sit in an emotion for like 3 to 4 minutes, but not an emotion that is like a pop song that is just like relatable to anyone, but an emotion that is relatable to a character we already know. It's as if like a friend of ours was telling us their secret, but singing about it. So that affective realm of music and musicals kind of fleets the episodes to have like a certain emotional honesty that television doesn't usually have. Television is about repetitive storylines or long prolonged change, or maybe like kind of like in an Arrested Development or Parks and Rec way, where like some characters don't change ever. So then to be forced to change and speak is like a thing that only musicals can do. So it heightens the emotion via song. And if the TV show doesn't know what to do with that, then it becomes a bit of a parody. And if it does know what to do with it, then it kind of breaks the fourth wall and it affects the rest of the series. But no matter what, it feels a bit forced. It feels like we are forcing in the tools of emotional storytelling of musicals into like a emotionally dishonest format of television. Which is why I think the characters never want to do it. Like, they never want to sing, you know? Singing is never voluntary for the characters.
Like, it is never voluntary because the characters wouldn't sing. Like, I do break into song, but, like, if I was in a serious TV show about fulfilling my destiny as a vampire slayer, I probably wouldn't just break into song.
Yeah.
Similarly, if I was, like, a really stoic, like, monster hunter, like in Supernatural, probably, once again, wouldn't just break into song. But my point is, all of these musical episodes that we're talking about, there is like a canon reason for why they're singing. Like, us as the audience, we all know that the reason that they're singing is because the showrunners decided to make a musical episode. But that is to say, the characters don't know that. So there's like a couple of different categories that we've come up with. So the first is like kind of like real world plausible experiences that humans actually do have. So like illnesses, hallucinations, dreams, like anomalies, comas, exactly, like medical conditions, like things that play with our perception of the world that like might make you hallucinate, like singing and dancing. So like in Grey's Anatomy, it's a coma. Scrubs, I actually don't know what it was with that one. I assume it's also like some sort of medical thing.
It's someone else's, like a patient waiting is like seeing them all sing, if that makes any sense. Like, it's
amazing. No, it doesn't make any sense, but thank you so much. And in Gossip Girl, Serena's having a dream where she's, like, Blake Lively is just dreaming about singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Because she's in a love triangle. Anyway, so that's the first category of just, like, things that, like, plausibly you could experience as, like, a human being on planet Earth. The second category is for fantasy shows, which is to say some kind of, like, curse or magic or, like, supernatural force that makes the characters burst into song. So Once Upon a Time, which we will be discussing in depth in a second, has that as a curse / spell, and Buffy is also a curse.
Yes.
You let me know. It'll become apparent soon that I haven't actually watched one of the episodes that we are discussing, but that's okay because Mijin is here to guide me through it. But anyway. And lastly, the category that we noticed is sort of like diegetic musical performances, in the sense that like not that like Buffy and Once Upon a Time aren't diegetic, but like in the sense that they are like quite explicitly musical performances by the characters. Like they like it is like musical theater.
Yeah, like they're not forced to sing like out and about.
Exactly. Yeah. There's an in-world context where that actually does make sense.
Yes.
So in this case, so the two examples that we thought of for this were Supernatural, more on this later, and Riverdale, as discussed. Like the characters just kind of like put on performances of Heathers as part of their high school musical or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that there's like these tropes that justify musical episodes, and I was kind of going on about emotional dishonesty in TV shows because I think TV shows have to justify not only characters singing, but characters being honest and characters saying what they mean. And I think we're gonna see this particularly in the Buffy and the Supernatural ones, where like these musical episodes are about like uncovering things that the characters have like suppressed or not thought about. So it's interesting that we have to, I don't know, TV relies so much on the unspoken and on conflict being like so prolonged, on basically relies on no communication, that not only do we have to justify characters singing, which is unbelievable, but we have to justify even more believable stuff, which is characters communicating.
Wild. And in fact, they don't even have to communicate to each other. They just have to communicate with the audience.
Yeah, exactly. They just have to, or to each other, or to themselves, you know, they just have to admit certain things.
So now we've kind of established the sort of context and what our line of thinking is when it comes to musical episodes. We are going to jump into a few case studies. Much like our shipping episode, we are once again focusing on the same two hyperfixations, Once Upon a Time and Supernatural, but we're also discussing Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Because since our shipping episode, I started watching it, so I'm also really into it.
That, and also apparently it's just a really, really good benchmark musical episode, and no one's ever been able to compete with it since.
Hell yeah.
So we're gonna kind of frame it through Buffy in the sense that, like, as we say, like, Buffy is the benchmark in the sense that it is, like, very much of the musical episode genre, but it's kind of, like, it, like, works.
It's, like, the platonic ideal of the musical episode.
Yeah. Yeah, like, there was so much ambition and thought put into it. No other TV show has been able to replicate that same thoughtfulness.
Yes. Oh, also, we're gonna focus on curses and diegetic musical performances. It just doesn't fit in our hyperfixations to talk about like anomalies or comas, but I do think they operate similarly in like you just have to justify through like a wild set of circumstances, like a fucking illness or hallucination. Like, people are just not comfortable with suspending their disbelief when it comes to television.
Yeah.
And I think it's still, like, forces out of their control, but we are kind of focusing on 2 out of the 3 case studies are on curses / spells, and even the diegetic performance has to do with just forces outside of our control, which I would say the anomalies are that too. But yeah, that's what we're gonna focus on. Anyway.
So first up, Mijane, do tell us about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Everyone watch it. Just so much said about this episode. It's incredible. Besides the quality, I think the plot itself is really interesting. In like a very musical episode vibe, out of nowhere, Buffy is doing what she always does, which is patrol at night and killing vampires. She just starts singing. And the next morning, she's like, hey guys, to like the Scooby gang, aka like just like the gang of like, you know, like the friends, the fan family, whatever. She's like, hey gang, did you all like last night, did you start singing by any chance? And they were like, oh my god, we thought it was just us. And it makes it, and like that immediate like second scene makes it very, very apparent that this isn't something the characters are comfortable. As soon as they realize that they've all been singing, people like refer to it as bizarre. Like Xander says, like, it was very disturbing, like no one wants to do this, and they like eventually like open the door and realize it's not only them that are cursed, it's the entire town. People are singing about parking tickets or laundry like mustard on a tie after the laundrette, you know, like everyone is singing. And when the gang starts singing like their first kind of number all together, one of the first lines they say, it's getting eerie, what's this cheery singing all about? So it's very much like they don't want to do this. To bring it back, to say this again, no one in a musical episode wants to sing. Singing is always involuntary. Apparently, Joss Sweden, in the commentary, in like the DVD commentary of Buffy, I miss those.
Yeah.
We would get so much...
that still exists.
But DVD.
But like, no one buys DVDs anymore. Like, no one buys Blu-ray.
But now it's like, stay tuned for the episode 3 minutes where Ben Stiller says, and I'm like, no, I want all of the commentary. Anyway, I miss him.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon, that was like a decision he wanted. Like, he wanted the dialogue and the references that the characters make to be self-conscious, so that the audience would feel more comfortable with the improbability of this happening. Which to me is wild, because we are in a world where, like, a whole episode where people lose their, like, they can't talk. Or we have a whole episode where they all forget who they are. So it's like, I don't know, the idea that we have to make them, like, aware that they're singing is crazy, because I'm like, quite literally stranger things have happened in this episode, but it just speaks of how uncomfortable we are with singing, and we will get into that. But just to, like, recap, it is basically, it turns out who's making them sing is a demon called Sweet, and Sweet was summoned, and I think the whole thing is that if, like, whoever summons him has to be, like, his wife, like, to the underworld. Like, it's very, like, Hades Persephone coded, where he's like, I'll stop this, like, awful singing as long as, like, I can take a bride with me. And for a second we think it's Buffy's sister Dawn, but then it's revealed that it's Xander, who just wanted to find out if him and Anya were, like, meant to be together. And in, like, a slightly not homophobic way, you know what I mean, in, like, a slightly that's not gay situation, the demon's like, yeah, I'm good. Like, if I have to take you, I'm good. I'm gonna go. So we defeat demons via, I don't know what to think about that.
Via no homo?
Via no homo! Exactly. Exactly. That's what I mean. That's what it's all about. Why the episode is great. Let's get into this. Or, like, what I want to talk about it. Very quickly, the lesbians are great in this episode. The lesbians are great in this show. Maybe not what happens later in the season. But Buffy was actually the first TV show that portrayed a long-term lesbian relationship. Any TV show before that, which is crazy, any TV show before that had just, like, a coming out scene or, like, a lesbian character in the background, but they never had a long-term partnership. Also, they usually would make them kiss or hold hands. Buffy in this particular episode has, like, a semi-explicit sex scene, which we barely get with, like, other characters, you know. Like, this is incredible. And it's very iconic that Tara literally sings as she's being eaten out by Willow.
I like, Mulholland Drive came out around the same time. Like,
exactly.
This was so ahead of its
so much
time.
better. It's great. The other reason, that the relevant reason to this argument, why this episode is amazing, is because it utilizes music to move the plot forward. So it's not, like, I haven't seen the Riverdale one, but I would dare say that, like, obviously it moves the plot forward in, like, this is part of the plot, but music isn't employed to, like, condensed story plot and story and, like, emotions the way it is in Buffy. They just are singing because it's funny. In Buffy, it's like, you go through the theme, you utilize song in the way that you would utilize it in a musical, where, like, multiple characters are having realizations and then make a decision, in which, like, through song they defeat the baddie, in which through song they come to terms with their emotions. And once again, in the director's commentary thing of Buffy, Joss Whedon commented that he was, and I quote, obsessive about progressing a plot in a song, about saying things that we haven't said. And he then compared it to the episode I just mentioned, Hush, where no one can speak, like, the whole town is just, like, in complete silence, but also that leads them to, you know, communicate what they haven't been saying through not being able to talk. So in a way, through singing, they are able to say what they haven't said before. They are forced into emotional honesty. They, you know, like, Xander and Anya finally confront their doubts they have about their marriage or, like, their engagement. What else the fuck happens? Oh yeah, like, two characters, like, come to terms with, like, the fact that they must leave, like, one of the more core relationship in the show. R.I.P. And most importantly, Buffy reveals, like, a huge secret that we have only known and only one other character has known for a couple episodes now, but it's important for the whole show. This is, like, the crux of the emotions of the whole season, where Buffy reveals that when she died and she was brought back, she wasn't brought back from hell, she was brought back from heaven. So it's, like, a huge reveal. And I think it's really interesting, the use of this self-conscious storytelling, because, like in a musical, everyone in the kind of world can hear, like, there's no, like, songs that are only in the people's heads. Like, they hear each other's complaints, they hear each other's secrets, so they find out each other's intentions and secrets, leading to more drama, but also accelerating the drama and the conflict by having these, like, honest communication. You kind of end up this episode thinking Buffy would have never said that you know, she feels betrayed and she feels like she's living in hell because of her friend's actions if she hadn't been like forced into saying that through song. And I think it's like, in a way, it's really cool what Joss Whedon does, that the threat is not really that they could sing and dance forever. The threat is that they there's an actual threat bigger than that, which is that if they are not honest, they literally burn alive. That is kind of like the midpoint of the episode, where we see like a random person who just sings and sings and dances until he burns alive, like literally like spontaneously combusts, which apparently, according to Rhonda Wilcox in Why Buffy Matters, The Art of Buffy and the Vampire Slayer,
Amazing.
That is an allusion to Bleak House by Charles Dickens.
It is?
Yes.
I haven't read Bleak House, but okay.
Me neither, but there's like a whole thing of spontaneous combustion in Bleak House, and apparently that's where he got it from, which is fucking crazy. But anyway, it's just so interesting that it's like the episode is so interested in emotional honesty and in truth telling, which is exactly what we're saying, that it forces the characters to truth tell, and it kind of poses this idea that if they don't, they will burn alive. I will talk more about kind of sweet and what forces them to sing, but this is why the episode is great. And like, the songs are original, they're written by the showrunner, they're amazing. Again, they're kind of designed for each character, and they have a different genre for each character to kind of go through an emotional arc, which by contrast doesn't happen in the Once Upon a Time episode. Well, kinda, but like not really.
Well, I think the Once Upon a Time, jumping into that now to compare to the Buffy episode, I think the Once Upon a Time episode is very apt for the quality of season 6 of that show. Which is to say,
not very good.
Even us two, who were huge fans of the show, didn't quite make it to season 6.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. So, the musical episode of Once Upon a Time, it's called The Song in Your Heart, because of course it is. Once Upon a Time is obsessed with hearts, and of course the song is in your heart. Oh, it
truly is, yeah.
Yeah, no, they love the hearts. The heart is so physical. It's not the metaphorical heart, it's your physical heart.
Yes.
So it is the second to last episode of season 6 of Once Upon a Time. It is the episode in which Emma, the main character, and Captain Hook's wedding takes place. And so if we've talked about Once Upon a Time, it's probably like 4 other episodes, but Once Upon a Time is a show based on Disney IP, so it, like, obviously major Disney vibes when it comes to the musical episode. Disney has had a huge influence on musical theater as a whole, so this all checks out. Once Upon a Time, like, as a show, most episodes are typically set between a sort of then and now, like, past and present sort of format, with the past taking place in the Enchanted Forest, pre-First Curse. This all makes sense if you have seen the show. If not, don't worry about it. And then the present being current day event in Storybook, which is probably Curse 5, 6, 7, who knows at this point.
7, yeah.
Curse 7 for season 6. Yeah, here we go. So it is very much like a blueprint of the original show's format and concept, with the locations being then and now, the OG good versus evil, Charmings versus Regina dichotomy, curses that play with people's memories, etc. Yeah. But in this specific episode, the magical thing that happens justifies the singing within the universe of the story. So pretty much it is... how the fuck do I put this? In the now, the Black Fairy... In the now, there's a curse about to happen. The Black Fairy is getting ready to take over the Storybook. And
who's the Black Fairy? Yeah.
The season baddie, Peter Pan's mother. Is that right?
No.
Whose mother? Oh, Rumple's mother.
Technically fuck Peter Pan.
We don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about that. In the now, the baddie of the season is getting ready for the final battle, and there's also a wedding trying to take place, and they're like, oh no, there's the wedding, the Black Fairy though, like Emma can't make it to her wedding if she's dead. So that's the now. And then in the then, it's like Regina, the evil queen, is, getting ready to assert her big curse over the town. And Snow White is currently pregnant with the series' protagonist, Emma. And she makes a wish upon a star to find a way to protect her baby, to her unborn baby. And the next morning, Snow and Charming find themselves singing. Everything that they say comes out in song.
And it's so good because... even though this is within the universe of Disney, they are like immediately like, there is something wrong. Like, there must be a curse. Because all my words are coming out in verse. Like, they immediately know this is a curse. Obviously, because there's like 1.5 million curses in this fucking show. So anytime something happens that they didn't want, it's probably someone else's magical doing. But also kind of, once again, re-emphasizes the idea that these characters always are unwilling to sing.
Yes, 100%. Like, even though ultimately it is like, you know, Snow White is like, I think I know my love. It's all because of that star I wished upon above.
This bitch knows it immediately.
With music in our hearts, we'll defeat the evil queen. Like, she recognizes the music being a positive thing, but even so, they're singing completely involuntarily. Like, did it have to be music? Who knows? It's really inconvenient, I'm sure. And the other thing is, even though it's like this wish upon a star that Snow White made to protect her unborn baby, everyone in the Enchanted Forest is singing, like quite literally everyone. So we cut to Regina, the evil queen, really unhappy that she's singing, and she finds out from her magic mirror that it's because Snow White and Prince Charming made a wish, and now this song is gonna defeat her, ? Anyway, involuntary singing all around.
Also, may I say, I've never thought about this. You said everyone in the Enchanted Forest is singing, but Zelena is in Oz, and she's singing. Like, why is this affecting other realms? It makes no sense.
You're so right. Why is Zelena singing? And I think another funny thing to point out more than anything is that Regina goes to visit Rumpelstiltskin in like her prison cell, and he isn't singing for like canon reasons, but it's 100% because the actor refused to sing. And
can I make a parallel with Buffy? What I think it works really well. Alison Hannigan, who plays Willow, begged Joss Whedon to not give her lines, and she quite literally only sings like one line so badly. I'm sorry, Alison Hannigan, you're my queen, but you cannot sing.
This is probably why she begged Joss Whedon to not give her lines.
She sings like two lines in the beginning, and like Rumpel, it's very on brand, because if singing is about emotional honesty, she's the one who's been fucking with everyone. She's the one who fucked with her girlfriend. She's the one who brought Buffy back from the dead. And because she's unable to like look, spoiler alert, basically Willow becomes the season baddie. So it's kind of like she's unable to actually like look at what she's done and being honest with her girlfriend and her friends. She's also unable to sing. And she becomes the baddie. Yeah. And it's kind of like Rumpel. Rumpel is the least self-aware, self-reflective, I will look into my feelings and heal, and like nothing. It makes a lot of sense that he doesn't sing, because he is the character we never want to see change, and we never want to see face his own emotions. Yeah. He's like the dark one singing and like laughs. Same. Robert Carlyle is like, my paycheck is not big enough.
No, honestly, I don't think any of theirs were. I didn't mention this, but in the present day, it is established in, again, the second to last episode of season 6 that Emma, the main character, out of 7, Emma, the main character, has harbored a secret childhood dream of singing. There's like, you know, a thing of her in the orphanage with a little tape recorder humming into a microphone, and someone is like, oh, who do you think you are, the next Madonna? And that's like part of her childhood tragic backstory. Previously unheard of. Like, none of us knew this, and she hasn't sung previously, so... And she also doesn't seem like the type.
I don't know if it's explicitly like she wants to be a pop star, but she like sings a lot into that thing. I don't know. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. And it is the theme song of the show, which is fun.
It's so iconic. That's great.
It's
kudos.
Fun.
Yeah.
Kudos. They saw an opportunity. They used
nailed
it.
That.
Back to the synopsis of this fucking episode. Long story short, they don't defeat the evil queen in the Enchanted Forest because that wasn't actually what the song was there to do, as the Blue Fairy, who's like, you know, one of the, you know, fairy godmothers type things from the Sleeping Beauty. Like, you know, what, like Blue Fairy, you know who she is, the Blue Fairy.
Yeah, Pinocchio, Blue Fairy.
Pinocchio?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Pinocchio.
Did you not know this?
I thought it was the Sleeping Beauty Blue Fairy. Anyway, point is, magical Blue Fairy. Mm-hmm. Magical Blue Fairy, who was actually also the star that Snow wished upon above. Oh. Sorry, Mijin is showing me the Blue Fairy. Well, Blue Fairy, it is like a thing in the show that she is just extremely overpowered, like Blue Fairy Ex Machina all the way.
The entire show.
Long story short, that song was reserved for a later battle because Blue Fairy knew that her unborn daughter would be facing some greater evil in the future, and she'd need that song when the time came, but that time wasn't now.
Blue Fairy, 36 years beforehand, knew about season 6 climax.
Yeah. And so Blue Fairy is like, yeah, I mean, like, tomorrow you'll wake up and none of you will remember ever having sung a song. This is to protect the song in her heart so it doesn't get stolen, ? And Snow White rightfully asks, oh, but how will she know to use it when the time comes? And Blue Fairy says, and I quote verbatim, "We will just have to hope that they find their way to the surface when she needs them the most."
It's crazy.
Fuck around and find out, I guess.
It's so weird. It's so bizarre.
But this is all to say, Blue Fairy is very much a benevolent god type character in Once Upon a Time.
She and also is all-knowing. Clearly.
The
fuck? She's like, yes, omniscient. I see the future and she will need this song.
Exactly. She is so extremely overpowered. She hears and grants wishes, but she ultimately protects the good. Like, she is a good character. So therefore it makes this, like, you know, in Buffy, like, the singing is like a malevolent curse.
Yeah.
In Once Upon a Time, it's like completely involuntary, as we discussed, but it is benevolent. So it's kind of like fine. Like, they're just like, okay, whatever. Like, this is if you had to do it this way, that is fine, I guess. Like, we trust you implicitly. But it's really violating.
Yeah, it still is involuntary, and in a bizarre ending, Emma remembers the song via the recorder, and she uses the song to, like, briefly win a teeny tiny battle against the dark fairy, against the baddie. Too many fairies against the baddie. It doesn't, like, impact the actual ending. The baddie still kind of momentarily wins and, like, curses them, but, like, momentarily the song helps her, like, have her happy wedding and have, like, a kind of like a fun day. So it's kind of justified as, like, the end justifies the means. Like, this was as you say, a benevolent curse. But it's, like, really bizarre that we have, like, a curse that forces them all to sing that is good in the same episode that then a curse that forces them all to forget is bad. You know, like, in the like, Once Upon a Time is all about curses having to be defeated. Like, the original curse of Regina cursing everyone in the town to lose their memories is about how evil it is for us to use magic to control each other. And yet, when the Blue Fairy does it, is fine. It is fine. When Regina and Zelina and Rumpel do it, that makes them evil. But when the Blue Fairy does it, it's fine. I guess, like, technically the intention is good, therefore the curse is good, and it's not a curse. But it also just gets into this kind of godly dynamic that Once Upon a Time has, where if I kill someone, I go to hell, but if God tells me to kill someone, then that's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's a very, like, Abrahamic religion coded.
Yeah. And especially given, like, most of these curses, as you say, like, deal with, like, wiping people's memories and forgetting their loved ones or, like, whatever. And the Blue Fairy does quite literally wipe everyone's memories because, again, to protect the song in her heart. But, again, it's like, yeah, no, fair enough. You do you, God. Like, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I understand, like, the reason why this memory thing happens is because they had to, like, somehow canonically introduce the singing and, like, you know, explain it away within an episode. But, like, if you actually, like, take it for what it is like a really weirdly sinister thing. Like, she forces everyone to sing for apparently no real reason. Like yeah, like, there is a reason, but it's pretty like, she could have used that immense power to make everyone sing, like, to actually fix the situation they had at hand instead of predicting something that'll happen in the future as a direct result of, like, the events that she could have stopped.
Quite literally.
You know what I mean?
No. I know. You know what I mean? Of course I know what you mean. Yes. I think this is the weird thing where it's like, I guess it's like, it kind of takes this idea of, like, singing as a powerful thing. Emotions, good or bad. Like, this emotion will give Emma strength. So that's kind of how it justifies it. But yeah, like, if she can give her that tool 40 years in advance when she's literally a fetus, where is she in the literal battle? Like, in the now, where is she?
Yeah.
It's so like
where is
God
she?
works in the blue fairy works in mysterious ways via song.
Yeah. The more I think we try and explain the Once Upon a Time musical episode, which is clearly fan service.
Yes.
I think that is something that we haven't quite touched on yet. Like, a lot of these episodes are like special occasions for within the for the show's fandom. Like, Once Upon a Time, it's the special wedding episode. Makes sense. They would do something fun with it. And as I will go on to discuss next, the Supernatural musical episode is the 200th overall episode in the show. So it is very much quite explicitly fan service, and it's really, really, really conscious of the creator-audience dynamic, paying tribute not only to the fandom of Supernatural, but also to like the creation and the legacy of Supernatural, and specifically Eric Kripke, who's the creator of Supernatural.
We've talked about this episode, I think, in the shipping episode as well. Or in the fanfiction episode.
Oh, we definitely did.
Yeah.
We definitely did. We touched on it because it, again, as I say, it's like such a tribute to like the fan culture, which they've like had like I'll talk about this in a second as well. But like they've included nods to Supernatural's fandom previously, but like basically Supernatural as a concept, like as like a fictional story, and like as a like Dean and Sam Winchester exists within the universe of Supernatural as Dean and Sam Winchester as they exist in our universe, if that makes sense. Like, basically there was this book series that was published, and like I think it's introduced in like season 4, and Sam and Dean come across a Supernatural like fan convention where people are like cosplaying as characters from their lives. It's super, super explicit, and like there was like Becky is introduced, who's like this Supernatural super fan who like kidnaps Sam, I'm pretty sure, at some point. She's like in love with Sam. Anyway, fan culture has been addressed. Supernatural as like a book series has been established in the show at the point at which this fanfiction episode in season 10 comes in. But I think importantly, in the context of the show, the book series Supernatural within the show was written by a guy called Chuck, who was later revealed to be a prophet of the Lord. And then once that season arc had sort of finished and solved itself, Chuck on screen vanishes into thin air. And it's kind of like he's fulfilled his purpose on Earth, ? It's like really, really not explained where he went. Like, he just disappears on screen. So the Supernatural musical episode, the premise of it is Sam and Dean are doing their Monster of the Week. They're investigating the disappearance of a teacher at a high school, and they find out as they arrive at the school to investigate that the kids there are putting on a musical based on Supernatural, the book series. It's like Supernatural the musical, which is to say, it's like, so the premise of the show in the episode is that it's Supernatural up to like season 5 or 6, I can't quite remember, and then it's fan fiction from like act 2 onwards. Like, there's robots and whatever, like they make a joke out of it, and I think it's like poking fun at like crack fanfiction, basically.
I love that, to bring it back to our our writing fanfiction episode, she calls it transformative fiction. Yes. And then Dean is like, fanfiction. Like, call it how it is.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, they know. And like, it's super, like, the episode itself, it's super, super self-aware. There's the 2 kids who play Castiel and Dean in the show are like in real life a couple, so it's like playing into Destiel. There's a song about how, like, you know, Dean's emotionally repressed with daddy issues. There's loads of like fandom in jokes, poking fun at, like, for instance, like this character from like several seasons ago who was Sam and Dean's biological half-brother, Adam, who they forgot, like no, the show just hasn't mentioned since they left him in hell trapped with Lucifer in a box. So they poke fun at that.
For context, I've only seen this one episode, so I have no fucking clue what Felicia's saying. I did see the whole Adam thing, and I was like, huh?
Yeah, no, they forgot about him. They do bring him back in like season 12 or 13, I can't quite remember, but he's like a big part. It's like, oh my god, like dad had another son. Hasn't been mentioned since season 8 or whatever season it was. But yeah, it's like, you know, more interestingly, this episode is very much a celebration of like the creation and like the creativity behind Supernatural. I think a good thing to flag when it comes to this is like, so the show, in every single episode there's a then and now title card. So every episode begins with a then, which is to say, here's what you missed on Supernatural. And then now cuts to like whatever the episode is. So in this episode, the then title screen is followed by a shot of like, what do you call it? Like the title page of the pilot of Supernatural. Yeah. So like just a blank screen, pilot created by Eric Kripke. So quite explicitly, it's like, wow, look how far we've come. Look at this legacy this man has created. And then even to make it even more on the nose, the monster of the week is revealed to be Calliope. Calliope, I don't know how to pronounce Greek words, who is the Greek muse. And in the context of the show, she is like this malevolent deity whose whole thing is that she removes threats to artists and authors in order for them to like fulfill their creative pursuits and, you know, create whatever they need to create before Calliope devours them. So it's kind of like a protective deity in terms of like she's really protective over like creative people, but ultimately she devours them, and that's what makes her a monster.
And it's really funny that she says that like she wants to eat the creator of Supernatural because it has it all. It has drama. Yes. It has love. And it's just like me watching this like, is she serious? Is she for real? It's great.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like so like, because like especially given like the teenage director, creator,
of the musical.
Star of the musical, she herself is like a huge fan of the seminal masterpiece Supernatural, the series by Chuck, whatever the fuck his last name is. Like it's such a tribute to that creation, but that teenage writer and director herself is also just like super passionate and controlling over her creation, which is to say Supernatural the musical, her fanfiction and love letter to the fandom and show. Well, in her world, the book. Basically, like, long story short, the episode is focused around her accepting her role as, like, producer, director, and star of the show. Like, you know, she is fulfilling her artistic vision and, like, she is accepting that responsibility and that duty. And at the same time, Sam and Dean are, as always in every single fucking season of this show, grappling with the issue of, do they want to continue in the lifestyle? Dean is like, I don't know any better. All I know is this. You and me in my car, driving around the country, hunting monsters, saving lives, the family business. And Sam, as always, being like, maybe there's life outside of this. But indeed, the episode ends with basically through watching Supernatural the musical, Sam and Dean accepting that, yeah, like, this is what they do best. Like, they are going to set out on the road again and they're going to continue the family business. So it's very much, like, interested in this idea of, like, the roles we have to play, the inevitable path that fate has set out for us. Like, no matter what we do, we are sort of, like, intrinsically, like, supposed to do something. And you should just grab that with both hands. And again, going back to the issue of God and like godly powers, as mentioned in the Once Upon a Time episode as well, it is revealed at the very end of the episode that the author of Supernatural, the book series, has come to watch the show, and they're like, oh my god, I'm so glad you made it. What did you think? And he goes, not bad. And it's like, whoa, Chuck is back. This guy we haven't seen for several seasons. And it's like, not in that episode, but like later on in the show, revealed that Chuck is in fact God. So God wasn't, like, he wasn't actually a prophet at all. He was God, like capital G God.
And he wrote, it's literally once again all-knowing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say about you said, we must do something. It's interesting that we're about to talk about this, about like the elements of free will, and this is what we've been hinting at this whole episode, because in a way it is about them just accepting that this is what they're meant to do, this is their fate. But also this funny thing in this episode where she says like, oh, it's a boy melodrama scene, and it's where they're like kind of like having a heart-to-heart, and it's again employing the tools of musical theater and musical episodes that bring forward emotional honesty, because it feels like when I was watching it, it felt like they needed to see themselves make that choice. They needed to see themselves like openly have a heart-to-heart, which they would never do, in order for them to recommit to their path. So they still need that release of emotional honesty.
And the climactic battle scene in the episode takes place during a song called A Single Man Tear, which is Sam and Dean singing about Dean's emotional repression. And Sam is singing about how, I wish my brother could see the way I see him, the perfect brother, a man without sin. And then Dean similarly is singing about how he wishes that he could be as strong as Sam is, and I need to make my father proud. Very like early seasons Supernatural coded, but like it is a running theme and kind of like the heart of these two characters. Like it is meant to be like a comedic scene with like these very heartfelt lyrics happening like as part of the musical, but like the most chaotic battle scene with a giant scarecrow taking place in the background. But ultimately I think that does to serve the, like, you know, to show the tension between like the sort of comedy and the irony and the surreality of like the musical taking place on stage, and how it affects Sam and Dean's subsequent decisions. Like they see these really exaggerated forms of their repressed and, you know, locked up feelings, like for however exaggerated it is based in honesty, and it is based in like what their experiences are. They just haven't been able to articulate it previously. And that does, like, in a very sort of, like, what's the word? Like, it is a kind of organic way. Like, it does direct them to make the right choice in the end. It isn't, like, the musical was telling them what to do, but it is them reckoning with this, again, like, exaggerated, enhanced, very openly honest versions of themselves that directs them to make the decision that they make in the end of the episode.
Yeah, and I would say that it's almost the same. It's, like, a parallel to Buffy, basically. So to kind of bring it back to Buffy, just to finish off, because I didn't want to bring up the godly thing as early, I would say that the Buffy's kind of like the least godly episode. There's no canon god the way that it is in Supernatural. There's also no canon like one singular overpowered source like the Blue Fairy in Once Upon a Time. There are just different gods. Like we have Osiris, we have like made up gods like Blurificas, and whenever we talk about the afterlife or anything, they say like the powers that be as like the greater thing. However, it does have the same structure basically, where Sam and Dean are monster hunters and this fate has been given like via family, right? Buffy's fate has also been given to her. She was just like, in every generation there's a slayer, and she happens to be the slayer. And this whole time, again, kind of like Supernatural, Buffy has just been doing this because she has to, and with doubts and being really unhappy, and that is what her first song is about. It's called Going Through the Motions. So it's, again, a pun in the fact that she's forced to sing, but it's also about the fact that she is forced to be the slayer, and she hasn't chosen to be the slayer. And the arc that she goes through in this episode and in this season is the similar arc as Sam and Dean, by realizing that she's not feeling anything and that she's not choosing to be this thing she has to be, and nothing that has happened to her in the past like 5-6 seasons have been in her control. This is the turning point of her eventually choosing to be the slayer because she wants to be, not because she must. Like, it's kind of like a Greek tragedy situation of like, are you accepting fate? Or are you choosing to do this thing? Is it free will or is it determinism?
Yeah. In the research and planning of this episode, like, we did just come upon this trend of, like, all of these musical episodes kind of gravitating towards themes of free will and determinism. Again, it is because of that thing that the show has to justify the singing in some way. And as we've established, it is pretty much always involuntary, because, you know, like, most people can probably only imagine that these characters that we've like known for several seasons would only really sing against their will. Sam and Dean especially, in my opinion, but I'm sure Buffy is a very serious show as well. So like, these episodes quite explicitly exist because the showrunners and the audience and their audiences wanted to see their favorite characters sing and dance. Maybe with the exception of the Buffy episode, which seems like it was just Joss Whedon's fever dream. But
yes.
He realized it in a really great way.
And even like I Love Lucy, I think, was like a way to reinvent the show. It was like, it's not like it naturally occurred within the story. It's like, what can we do to make ratings higher?
Yeah. I'm also thinking of like the Gossip Girl episode. Like, it's just literally a cold open. Like, it's nothing. It's just like something that is really shareable. It's like, oh my god, did you see Gossip Girl last night? Serena was singing. Like, you know, it's like a very odd and instantly kind of like humorous thing to make your characters do. And because of that, because explicitly or implicitly you recognize that it is an odd thing, it's kind of inherently fourth wall breaking. I mean, Supernatural is very fourth wall breaking because of the fan service.
And to bring back, there's like a literal, like one of the songs in Buffy, the Anya Xander one, literally breaks the fourth wall. And then when she they're out of the song, Anya is like, it's as if we were being watched. It's as if there were not 4 walls but 3. So it's very self-aware. Yeah. It's very theatrical.
Yeah. So like these episodes exist because we want to see our dancing monkeys dancing. But I think from a form perspective, like it does, like this is why it forces the audiences to reckon with the fact that they are watching a story that was created by someone, which is very much akin to like what metafiction is, or rather it uses the same tensions between the audience and the author / work that metafiction uses to be really self-reflective and, you know, challenge the audience to look into like the medium and the form and the intention behind those aspects of the thing that they're watching.
Yeah, that's actually so fitting because this isn't as much of a critique or an ode or anything to musical episodes. It's just, this is why they work, because through metafiction, through the technique of metafiction, it makes us reflect and examine the format. And the format isn't musicals. The format is television. Because we know what musicals are. We cringe, we sing along. Some people like them, some people don't. But television, to an extent, is quite like a new thing. We haven't had like 20 years, like, you know, of like, in like the history of mankind. We haven't been able to follow a story consistently for years and years and years, even decades. This, to like bring back my love John York, is like the 3rd time I bring him back. Like in Into the Woods, he has this reflection. I think I quoted this already in the fanfiction episode we had, where he talks about the reason why we watch television is very different why we watch film. Like we watch television because we want like a second home, and we, by, you know, seeing our favorite characters every single week in the same place, it's like going to school or going to work. We do kind of grow attached to these characters and they become our family. And I think that kind of takes away our ability to understand that this is still like long form theater. You know, like in theater we have to suspend our disbelief and make props, like in our brain we have to make props be real, and we need to understand that the whole world is like, the whole stage is a world. Whereas in like television, we're just watching it. We're just like watching it forever. We think of these people as real. We write fan fiction about them. We see them grow. We see them age. So then when they do this thing that doesn't seem quite like them, which is sing or dance, we kind of just, I don't know, kind of, I think it wakes us up a little bit, and it reminds us that it is still, as you said, a story that was created by someone. It is a convention, like in the way that like Shakespeare and soliloquies are a convention, the way we've been saying that like they make the characters emotionally honest in a way that seems fake and forced. You know, I think television is very akin to real life. Like we don't say what we mean ever. We don't confess our secrets in a public space. But somehow with musicals, we realize we can. This isn't real life. This is still theater.
So to bring this back to like our case studies, the other thing that kind of like brings the audience face to face with like the creator of the world that they're currently watching is like the in show canon version of like the reason they're singing, right? Like so the in show canon version of like the showrunner / author. It is very much like this case of like all of the writers and showrunners writing themselves as a character into the show, however like vague or like, or you know, metaphorically that is, or obviously that is, like in Supernatural it's very obvious. In other cases it's, you know, it's just straight up God. Blue Fairy, hello. But of course we can talk about authority without bringing our friend, our pal, Roland Barthes into this. We've discussed his seminal essay, Death of the Author, previously, and we're not going to go into that because, God, we don't have time. But let's use some of the terminologies he introduces to discuss this, because I think, like, yes, Roland Barthes' whole thing is that sort of, like, the author has no authority, but he does kind of recognize the existence of, like, a creator of the text. So he refers to the author as the scripter, just this sort of like theoretical creative force that existed only in the moment of the creation of the work and then ceases to exist after the creation of that work. Like so the work does kind of like stand on its own, but there was sort of like a thing that made it happen, the producer, if you will. So, like, we're not going to discuss, like, the thing that Death of the Author actually is about, which is about intention and interpretation, but we're going to talk about how this framework discusses power and control and power with it, like, the power balance between, like, the reader and the writer. Because, like, the author and the showrunner, whatever, like, Blue Fairy, might not have power over the audience's interpretation of the story, but they still need to assert their power over the characters of the story, and you know, like they physically make them do the things that they do. And so these musical episodes, they make us aware of that loss of, like, the characters' loss of agency and power, and that is kind of like weird and uncomfortable for us, which we interpret as cringe
or as parody. I think this is the thing, and what the idea of television being like a home that we go back to, a family we relate to, it feels like a violation of us as well, because we relate to these characters and we feel like they are family, like they're an extension of us, an extension of our psyche, an extension of our, you know, humanity. So when we see them sing or dance against their will, it's bizarre. Makes us reckon with the lack of control characters have, makes us reckon with our lack of control, but also I think it also makes us feel a bit powerful, because we like these, like, you know, as you said, they're fan servicey, like they become the fans' favorite episodes, or they happen only because the fans wanted it. So I think they also make us feel a bit powerful, a bit like God. Like, we're not the author creator as the showrunner, but we also kind of, like, I don't know, see the characters struggle through something they didn't want to do, and also freeing themselves, which is really, I think, is very Greek tragedy. I guess Emma in Once Upon a Time just does as she must. But to an extent, she never wanted to sing, and it's like her big moment that she chooses to fight. I think this is the thing. Low-key, we should have brought this up earlier. Emma doesn't want to fight. She just wants to have her wedding. She doesn't want to fight the big baddie. She doesn't want to fight the fairy. But through this shit happening to her loved ones and all being frozen and all this shit, she is forced to sing, but she also chooses to liberate them. So it's like, yeah, we kind of see this, like, both a catharsis of seeing someone else go through what we see, which is like more powerful forces like controlling our lives, but also the empowering narratives of our characters choosing to fight back, or choosing to take upon their fate with their own free will instead of being forced into it. Which, honestly, when we were discussing this episode, we kept bringing up Teen Beach Movie, which is honestly a masterpiece. I haven't seen it.
I have seen it.
Like, upcoming episode, honestly, because it's a masterpiece when it comes to this. You know the, like, TikTok famous, like, make it stop, am I real or just a prop? That's literally everything we've been trying to say. That these characters are reckoning with the fact that they are pawns in a showrunner's board. That they are made to do things. And, like, literally in Supernatural, that's something I literally thought about when I was watching it. I was like, oh, there's, like, the scarecrow prop comes back to life.
Yeah.
To what extent is what we create alive? And to what extent is what we create, like, our own creation? Like, something we can play God with? And is there, like, a bigger God in the way that is, like, Blue Fairy or Chuck? Or is there, like, just our, you know, the call back to destiny, which is when we decide to be the slayers or the monster hunters or the powerful magic, the song inside of our hearts. I think it is always about control in the way that all fiction is about control, and whether we choose to succumb to it or fight it. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, The Gifted Child Symposium. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on right now. It would really help us out. Also, please share us with your friends, family, and enemies. You can find us on Instagram at giftedcs.pod. We would love to hear from you.
The inception of this episode is that in the very beginning of lockdown, March 13th, 2020, Friday the 13th, we were, you know, anticipating the impending doom of the world. And what did we decide to put on as escapism for our final night together before the apocalypse? Episode 22 or whatever the fuck of season 6 of Once Upon a Time. Because we both heard that there was a musical episode of this show that we both watched as teenagers, but neither of us had seen it. And indeed, what an experience it was to watch it out of context. Because we hadn't seen the rest of season 6. We just jumped straight into the wedding episode.
It was incredible. And you don't need context. No. For anyone out here who wants to watch Supernatural, Buffy, or Once Upon a Time musical episodes, you don't need context for shit. It's just fun.
Yeah. Like, maybe Google, like, roughly who the characters are, but, like, other than that, you're set.
It's so much fun.
You're all good. This trauma bond, this experience that we had together, like, genuinely made us have an emotional connection to the songs from the musical episode Once Upon a Time.
I kid you not. There is the song in the wedding, and like Emma's wedding, is Happy Beginning. I was locked in the house in Florida, living through hell, thinking life is never gonna be the same. And I was like, there's no storm we can't outrun. We will always find the sun. And I was fully resting my entire mental health on a happy beginning now is ours. Like, fully. When we were facing endless night, I was like, this is Felicia and I in the end of the world, separated by oceans.
Honestly, it's like, the lyrics are cheesy, but God, you really feel them when
I needed it.
You two are facing the apocalypse, much like the characters in Once Upon a Time.
Yes.
Like, instead of, like, you know, a curse by the Black Fairy, it's, you know, a global pandemic that no one knows anything about. It does feel like the endless night. And, like, I want to say something about this particular song, A Happy Beginning, because we didn't talk about this in the episode. This song takes place in the present day of Storybrooke, post Blue Fairy, Song in Your Heart magic. So in the canon of the show, they are singing this for no apparent reason. And they have a rehearsed dance number to go with it.
Yeah, it's... Buffy has the same thing, but it's like way more subdued. And I know that you mentioned the dance number. It's so La La Land as well. Like, it's such a choreographed thing. Yeah. And I know we needed like a fairy tale Disney like final number. Like, I know that's like what we need structurally, but it doesn't make any sense. They are free. They're free.
They are free.
You need to talk about Henry not being free. Henry being held at gunpoint. Which is, honestly, if we want to talk about freedom and agency and determinism, we need to talk about what's his name? Jared Gilmore, who had no free will in this episode.
Oh, honestly, I think about this every time I think about the musical episode of Once Upon a Time, which is so frequently. And you just, like, hear, whenever you hear the song as well, you just, like, get reminded of it. Because we discussed how Robert Carlyle clearly point blank refused to sing, but also it doesn't make any sense for Rumpelstiltskin to sing. You know who doesn't have the negotiating powers of Robert Carlyle, nor the character of Rumpelstiltskin? Henry, Emma's son, who he hasn't had a number here to, like, you know, throughout the episode yet. Most characters, in fact, all characters who sing in this final song, A Happy Beginning, have had solo numbers already. So Regina, Zelina, Charming, Snow, etc. But poor my baby Henry has one line in the final ensemble song. And I understand the ensemble song is meant to, like, be like, look at all your favorite characters singing all together. Like, what a beautiful moment. Like, yay, how fun. I don't know why, but Henry, in his one, there's no way we can fall, he just sounds like he's being held at gunpoint. Like, he just sounds so unbelievably unenthusiastic. And, like, he sings in such a, like, monotone, like, there's no, like, it's not a melodious delivery of that line, and it's one line, and I think he was actually held at gunpoint and made to sing that one line because they were like, we have to have Henry sing in the song, sing in the episode.
Yeah, I think he had no choice, much like our characters.
Yes, exactly. Everyone go listen to Once Upon a Time, the musical episode, on Spotify.